Today's session, we're going to attempt to discover as to why we should rejoice, we should be happy on Lag Baomer. Seemingly, it's in the middle of the mourning period of the 24,000 Talmidim, these students of Rebbe Akiva, and don't come along and say that we're rejoicing because they stopped dying on Lag Baomer, because what's there to be joyful about? They were already dead. So we're going to present five different answers. It's a very cryptic topic, so to say. These are my notes on the subject, and we've discussed some of this in the past. This is just going to be organized, straight five answers. The Shulchan Aruch says that there's a custom not to get married between Pesach and Shavuos. Why? Because that's when Rabbi Akiva's students, that's when they died. This is in Siman Taf Sadi Gimel. Okay? And they stopped dying on Lag BaOmer. So why then is this a happy time? Didn't they stop dying because they were all dead? So the Pri Chadash over here says a tremendous insight. He said that yes, they perished. Nevertheless, the happiness of Lag BaOmer is because that there were five new students that Rabbi Akiva taught. So the obvious question is, wait a second, 24,000 gone, five new ones, and that's a happiness? How do you explain that over there? How is that a happy time over there? So the Torah, this is gonna be answer one. The Torah in Siman Tav Kav Ches says that Purim is always going to be on the same exact day as Lag BaOmer. So the obvious question is, what is the connection between Purim and Lag BaOmer? Why are they always going to be on the same day? So there's a well-known Gemara in Masechah Shabbos that everyone quotes on Peichas and Aleph that says that Kof Alem Har Kegigas Vayisatzivu Betachtis Tahar, that we stood under the mountain and Hashem forced us to receive the Torah. So the obvious question that everyone asks on this Gemara is, what do you mean Hashem forced us to receive the Gemara? We already said Na'aseh v'nishma in Shmos Chav Daled Zayin. We already said that we're going to keep the Torah. We're going to listen to the Torah. So why then is this a happiness over? Were we coerced? Were we forced to receive the Torah? What is the explanation of this? We already accepted it. Now, there's numerous answers to this question. You have the Medrash Tanchum Parshas Noach that distinguishes between the written Torah, the Torah Shebechsav, versus the oral Torah, the Torah Sheba'al Peh. What was written, that we willingly accepted. That's not so difficult. However, the Torah Sheba'al Peh, which requires strict laws and rigorous concentration in order to study them, and toiling to study and discover the depths of the true Torah, that is very difficult, and that we had to be forced to accept. That's one explanation. However, the Gemara, there's other answers as well, that we originally accepted the Torah when we said Na'aseh v'nishma. Maybe one was out of love, maybe one was out of fear. We needed to be forced so that we accept the Torah out of fear. You have to have avas Hashem, yiras Hashem. You have to love Hashem and fear Hashem. Another answer is we had to willingly accept it because maybe we would have went off the straight path. Numerous answers. Nevertheless, the Gemara over there continues and says, quotes the pasuk at the end of Megillah Seser, Kimu v'kiblu, and the Gemara says, Kimu mashikiblu kvar. In other words, that Purim was an accepting of the Torah. On Purim, we willingly accepted the Torah. So we see from this that Purim is like a Kabbalah Torah. It's like the time when we receive the Torah. The same exact idea applies on Lag BaOmer. Meaning like this, the original 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva, they were unfit to transfer the Torah to the next generation. Why? Like the Gemara says, they didn't honor one another, which itself, of course, requires a tremendous explanation, understanding what that means. Yes, granted, they were at a very high level, but even so that they were at a very high level, a person doesn't deserve to die just because he doesn't honor someone. So there's multiple answers to that question. Nevertheless, The idea over here is that they were unfit to transfer the Torah to the next generation because they didn't honor each other, whatever the true and proper explanation to that is, as to why they were obligated to die for that. And there are numerous answers. Rabbi Akiva taught these five new students, and they respected each other, and they excelled in all of the memches kinyanim, all the 48 ways to acquire the Torah, as is related in the sixth parak of Avos. And therefore, once they did so, they were fit to transmit the Torah to the next generation. They honored each other and they were fit to transmit the Torah. Therefore, when Rabbi Akiva taught these five new students, that was considered a Kabbalah Torah. It was considered like a new Har Sinai when we receive the Torah completely new. And therefore, these five people, don't underestimate the power of five individuals. They literally transfer the Torah to the next generation. So therefore, the common denominator between Lag Baomer and Purim is what? Kabbalah Satorah. That it's a time when we properly receive the Torah. This is Rabbi Yerucham Olshin, what he discusses in his Yareach Lemoadim and Maimer Yud Zayin on Shavuos. So this is one answer as to why we rejoice on Lag BaOmer. We are rejoicing. Forget about the 24,000 old Talmidim, those old students. Rather, we're focusing on don't look in the past, but look in the present and look in the future. We're focusing on the new students, aka they were the ones who properly transferred the Torah to the next generation. That's answer number one. Any questions on that answer before we move to answer number two? Answer number two, as we already discussed above, it says in the sixth parak Avos that there are 48 ways to acquire the Torah. Actually, there are 49 days of Surah. Many Svarim discuss that every single day of Surah we should work on one of the ways to acquire the Torah, and then on the 49th day we review all of them. The Alter of Kelm says, actually, that's what the Alter of Kelm says, that's on the next slide. He's quoted in the Chachma's Umusar Chelek Aleph on Maimer 336. The point is that we have to work on each of the days. Now, what happens at 33? Day 33. What is the 33rd way to acquire the Torah? 33rd way to acquire the Torah is, not coincidentally, no such thing as coincidence, Ohev Esabrius, to love other people. We should rejoice, therefore, on Lag BaOmer because Rabbi Akiva taught these five new students that what? These five students, they had achdus, they had proper unity, and they also exemplifies, as we said in the first answer, the 48 ways to acquire the Torah. They therefore became fit to be the individuals who are going to transfer the Torah to the next generation, what's referred to as Moisrei Torah. Unity is a prerequisite for receiving the Torah. What's another reason why the Purim is going to be on the same day as Lag BaOmer? What's the connection? The Nesivos HaMishpat explains that the pasuk, new idea, Mishloyach Manois, is the commentary to Megillah Storim on Megillah Esther, Tes Yud Tes. What is Mishloach Manos? We are commanded to give gifts on Purim. What's Kedusha? Holiness is rooted in unity, whereas Tumah, being impure, impure, they're rooted in pirud or disunity. When the Jews sinned and there was separation among them, Haman pointed out that they weren't unified. Yishnu am echad mafuzah mafurd. He said that that they don't have unity. That's what he said. It's a Megillah Esther. However, after the Jews repented, they gathered and they sent gifts to each other and were redeemed. That's what they did after. Then they had the unity. So we see from this that the hardships of the Jewish people come when there's disunity. However, the salvation comes when we unify. According to the Chassam Sofer rather, he explains the Manos Alevi, the Shilos and Chuvas in Chelek Aleph Simin Kuf Sadi Vav. There's a general two-way argument as to why we give food items to other people, even if they're not poor, on Purim. It's called Mishloach Manos, right? So there's a machlokes according to the Trumas Hadeshin and Ishayos and Chuvas in Kuf Yud Aleph. We give in order that people use it for their festive meal on Purim for the Suda. However, according to the Manos Halevi in his commentary to Megillas Esther, this is Rabbi Alkabitz, the author of Lichadodi, towards the end of Megillas Esther in Tes Zayin, that he says we do it in order to be marbareos, to increase friendship. Chassam Sofer says that according to the Manos Alevi, someone would fulfill his obligation of Meshloach Manos if his friend rejected the Meshloach Manos that he sent him. In other words, since according to the Manos Alevi, the reason why we give Meshloach Manos is to increase friendship, therefore the friendship was increased when the gift was sent, even if the gift was rejected. Tangentially, according to the Chumas Hadeshin, who holds that it's going to be that the purpose of Mishalach Manos is to be used for the Suda, for the festive meal on Purim, one would not fulfill his obligation of Mishalach Manos in this case if your Mishalach Manos was rejected. Furthermore, the Suda on Purim and the Matanas Evyonim also attempt to foster unity. In other words, what's the common denominator between there's four mitzvahs on Purim? There's laying the Megillah, there's Mishloach Manos, Matanas Evyonim, gifts to the poor, and then there's the Suda, the festive meal. What's the common denominator between all of them? They all have to do with unity. Let's see. The Mishloach Manos, we're giving gifts to other people. Unity, we're becoming closer. The gifts to the poor people, unity. Suda, you have other people over, you have unity. The Megillah, everyone gets together. It's all unity. That's the idea over here. It's all about the Achdus over here. Correct? The Yerushalmi in Maseches Nedarim. This is a very probably one of the most famous Yerushalmis in all of Shas. The Yerushalmi Nedarim in Perek Tes Halacha Daled says that Rabbi Akiva taught that loving one's friend like oneself is a big principle in the Torah. V'ahavta l'recha kamocha zeh klal gadol b'Torah. How many different tunes of different songs are there for the statement of Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva emphasizes when he taught his new students. In other words, they ask the question, what do you mean? How did the 24,000 students perish when Rabbi Akiva is the one who said that you should have unity? How did they not respect each other even at their level? And the explanation is Rabbi Akiva didn't realize that even the simple concepts you have to teach until after what happened with the 24,000 students. And then Rabbi Akiva came out and emphasized the fact, and this is a major emphasis that Rabbi Akiva taught the new students. So therefore, the common denominator between Lag Baomer and Purim is Kabbalah Satorah, which was accomplished from the unity, and therefore this is another approach as to what is so special about Lag Baomer. Okay, so in other words, according to the first answer was that we accepted the Torah anew, completely new. It was a new receiving of the Torah. The second answer is a little bit of a different answer, that we accepted it new because you had to have the full unity, which is what Rabbi Akiva was about and which he exemplified. This is the Areach Lamadim Rabbi Olshin in Maimer Yudches. Answer number 3. Where did Rabbi Akiva get the strength to continue teaching after 24,000 Talmidim died? Rabbi Akiva was no younger than 64 at this time. How do we know? We know from the Abbas Rabbi Nelson in Perek Vav. Rabbi Akiva was 40 when he started learning Torah properly. He learned for 24 years straight, as the Gemara in Ksuba says on Daf Samach Beis. Therefore, last time I checked, 24 plus 40 is going to be 64. He was at least 64. Furthermore, he was very wealthy because he married the daughter of Kalva Savua, the wealthiest person out there, and he married his daughter Rachel. He was disowned. Him and his wife Rachel were disowned from his father-in-law because Kalva Savua was upset that his daughter Rachel married just a regular shepherd. But at the end of 24 years, he annulled his vow and realized that Rabbi Akiva became such a great scholar, and therefore he gave him a tremendous amount of wealth. So the point of the matter is that Rabbi Akiva had a tremendous amount of wealth. He was also 64, and he just had 24,000 students that died. Most people in this case will go buy a couple of houses and go in nice weather and take it easy the rest of their lives and retire. Is that what Rabbi Akiva did? No. Why didn't he retire? The Gemara in Meseches Yevamos over here learns from Rabbi Akiva on Samach Beis that someone who had students when he was young should have students when he's older as well. Where did Rabbi Akiva get the strength from? The answer is he never gave up. The Avos Rabbi Nosson relates, as we just said before, in Perek Vav, that Rabbi Akiva was 40 when he started learning Torah. Rabbi Akiva never lost hope before he learned any Torah properly as well, and he never lost hope. Even 24 years later, 24,000 students who perished later, he didn't lose hope. We see a similar idea that Moram Lois points out on Koheles in Yud Aleph Vav, that Boaz or Ivson, he had 30 boys and 30 girls. They all died during his lifetime. 60 children, incredible. Boaz didn't give up, and when he was over the age of 300, according to some, he married Rus and had a child. That child ended up being none other than David HaMelech, who we all know. Boaz dies that night. We see how important it is to never give up, to never have yish. The Jewish people didn't give up after the Holocaust or any other time in history. We are still strong like Boaz and Rabbi Akiva. We should rejoice on Lag Baomer because of the message. A deeper message behind Lag Baomer is the victory over never giving up. That is a deep idea and a big principle. That's the Yerech Moadim in Maimer Chof Rabbi Ocean yet again. And there's a lot of Svarim talk about, person studies and analyzes Rabbi Akiva's life. What an incredible individual and a great person in a great leader. But this message over here, this is a very powerful message that he never gave up no matter what. Answer number 4. The Chai Odom says that Lag Baomer is the Helula of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. It's no coincidence that tens of thousands of Jews annually go on Lag Baomer to Meron to visit the grave of Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. We know the Gemara in Maseches Yevamos Samach Beis teaches us that Rabbi Akiva taught 5 new students after the 24,000 perished, one of whom was Rabbi Shimon. Stam Rabbi Shimon and Shas is Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. So the point of the matter is that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai is one of these Talmidim of Rabbi Akiva, and that's why everyone goes there on Lag BaOmer, because they say that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai came out of the cave on Lag BaOmer, which is when Sisrei Torah, the secrets of the Torah, were revealed, aka they say that he authored the Zohar. But Lag BaOmer is called Hilula, a wedding of Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai. And therefore we honor Lag BaOmer and we rejoice. The Aruch HaShulchan also mentions this in Simin Tov Sadi Beis Oz Zayin, and adds that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died on Lag Baomer as well. Others farm many discuss this idea. This is where the custom comes to sing Bar Yochai on Lag Bar Yochai, right? That's where it comes from, because this song discusses the greatness of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, or in short, Rashbi. One of the lines we say in this song of Bar Yochai is Nasa Odom Nemar Ba'avudecha. Meaning, when Hashem said in the beginning of creation, let us make man, Nasa Odom, this refers to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself. How? Doesn't let us make man refer to mankind in general? Let us make man refers to someone who's at the level of Adam Arisha and Koydem Achet, Adam before the sin. This is a very high level which Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai reached. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai uplifted himself from indulging in temporary physicalities and lusts of this world. He lived in a cave for 13 years. 13, that's a tremendous amount of time. And he only ate carrots and drank water, nothing else. This is mentioned explicitly in the Gemara in Masechet Shabbos. On what daf in Shabbos? Page 33. That's right. Coincidence? I think that. No such thing as coincidence. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is all about Lag BaOmer. A lot of Lag BaOmer is about Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and the story of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in the cave is on Lag in Masechet Shabbos, Daf Lamed Gimel, page 33. Let us make man refers to Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. Why? Because Rashbi was at the darga of Adam Arishon Koydem Achet. He was at the level of Adam before he sinned. And therefore, this is where it comes from. There's a custom to burn clothing by Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's grave, by his kever on Lag BaOmer. Since Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai reached the level of Adam Rishon before the sin, Adam didn't wear clothing. Rashbi also didn't wear clothing in the cave, at least when he wasn't davening. He stayed in sin so that there wasn't a wear and tear on the limited garment that he had. And Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai reached this level, didn't wear clothing when he was in the cave. So we see that this is another idea. This is in the Reach Moadim and Maimer Yutes. Deep idea as to why we rejoice on Lag BaOmer. It's Rabbi Shimon bar Yochai That's what it is all about, and because he was at such a high level. Another and the last answer, based on this Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, also same exact idea. All the sources. Let's discuss the story a little bit, though. The Gemara over there in Shabbos on Daf Lamed Gimel relates that Rashbi, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and his son Rabbi Eliezer, they hid in a cave for 13 years and they learned Torah there. They were getting persecuted by the government for no reason. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai was one of the new 5 students that Rabbi Akiva taught. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai and the other 4 new students would be the individuals who were the Moisrei Torah, as we said before. They would transfer the Torah to the next generation. When Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai died, his Torah was spread more. Sometimes when someone passes, the Torah that he taught gets spread even more. Every year we're able to tap into this Torah and understand the Torah better. We rejoice on Lag Baomer because Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's Torah became spread to the world much more. What then is the significance of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai leaving the cave on Lag Baomer? The Gemara in Shabbos on Daf Lamed Gimel relates that Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, he had cracks in his skin and he suffered while he was in the cave. This suffering caused Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai to achieve a very high level in Torah. Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai himself said that Hashem gave 3 gifts to the Jews which only come through afflictions. This is the Gemara in Brachos, Hey Aleph, the first statement of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai in Shas. 3 gifts that Hashem gave, but it only comes through Yisudin, through difficulties. Torah, not easy to gain a lot of Torah knowledge and become a Talmid Chacham, Torah scholar. Israel, living in Israel, very difficult thing to do, we see, especially the last few years. And the world to come, Olam Haba, not easy to achieve the next world, to get it. Furthermore, one of the 48 ways to acquire the Torah is Kabbalah's Yisudin, accepting afflictions. Rabbi Aaron Kotler explains that there's no greater catastrophe than forgetting the Torah. The worst thing that could happen is Shichos HaTorah, when a person forgets Torah HaKadoshah. If we don't have Torah, then we're considered dead. A person who doesn't learn Torah, what's it worth? The Rambam says that the life of Talmidei Chachamim without Torah is like death. That's what the Rambam says explicitly in Hilchos Rasech V'Shmiras HaNefesh, Perek Zayin, Halacha Aleph. This is why the Gemara in Maseches Makos teaches us Talmud Shegala Megalan Rebbe Imo, that if a student has to go to a city of refuge because he has to go to an Iri Mikla because he killed someone accidentally, in that case, his Rebbe has to come with him. Why? Shenemar, the pasuk says, "V'nos elachas ha'erem ha'elu v'chai." Flee to one of these cities and live. And the Gemara over there expounds upon this pasuk in Darshans Avile Midu Dechayusa. Do something that will give him life. In other words, he doesn't just need food. His life, if he doesn't have his spiritual source of life, if you have a phone but you don't have a way to charge the phone, you're not going to be able to turn the thing on. You need something to charge it, something to give you life. The Rebbe's his life. And they discuss if you have a Rebbe, he's teaching hundreds of students, he has to leave his location to go to this one student. So the basic answer is that not everyone is Zoicha to learn from everyone else. In other words, certain people could only merit learning from a certain rabbi. And furthermore, they discuss it's not that the Rebbe would leave forever, he would go, teaches that one student, and then he would go back to where he is. Similarly, the Netziv writes in his Shilos and Chuvas Meishav Delavar and Chelik Beis Simin Ayin Vav that the necessary svarim for a Talmid Chacham are his life. In other words, if a Talmid Chacham, if a Torah scholar is going to be relocated somewhere without all of his svarim, what's that? He doesn't have a life, so to say. Nowadays, the Netziv writes in his Shilos and Chuvas Meishav Delavar that a Talmid Chacham, his svarim are his life. The opposite's also true. When we learn more Torah, we receive more life. As it says in Pirkei Avos in the second parak, Mar b'Torah, Mar b'Chaim. The more Torah a person has, the more life he has. Any additional understanding of the depths of the Torah wisdom is considered more life. Consequently, when Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai exited the cave, he completed his rigorous and complex study of the Torah. We aren't just celebrating that he was saved. Rather, we are celebrating all of the Torah he learned, and as a result of that learning, the tremendous spiritual growth that resulted. This Torah consequently was spread to the world when he left the cave. This is the Yarech Lamadim and Maimer Chaf Aleph. So in other words, these are five different reasons as to why we rejoice on Lag Baomer. Any questions, comments on any of this? Okay, so we'll continue with this next time.